This is the Tarantula Pro, an aggressively priced multi-platform Pro controller that has a very long list of special features. And today, GameSir has sponsored this video to showcase everything it can do. And the very first feature I want to talk about right away, because it is by far the most unique thing about this controller, I've not seen any other controller do this, is this. Because the Tarantula is a multi-platform controller, and amongst those platforms are systems like the Nintendo Switch and also being able to play on PC, a problem that controllers that go between these different platforms can encounter is getting a little confusing about their ABXY. PC, as well as a number of other platforms, like using the Xbox style where you have the A at the bottom, so on and so forth, whereas the Switch uses the Nintendo traditional layout that has a B at the bottom and swaps everything else around. So normally when a controller can be used between these platforms, you end up having to give up on one of them having the ABXY actually match up to what's being shown in game and make sense. That's not the case with the Tarantula because you can actually swap these around. And there's a few different ways you can do it. When it first connects to a Switch or PC, it's going to automatically detect what it's connected to and swap to the style that makes sense. But if there's a reason you want to change that manually, you're also able to do it via the GameSir app, or even just with a quick onboard hotkey control of holding the macro button on the back and holding down A. This is a very specific situation kind of feature, but again, I haven't seen any other controller really do this. I've seen different modular design approaches in the past, but when it comes to just being able to straight up swap the ABXY on the fly like this is a first. Now, before getting into the rest of the special features, let's go ahead and just tackle the general comfort, button sticks, all that good stuff about this controller. Grip style-wise, this is probably most equivalent to a DualShock 4, in that it's that very kind of elongated handlebar style with having symmetrical sticks. And so if that's a particular controller type that you have found to be comfortable, this is going to feel right at home. The sticks on the controller feel solid. They're maybe just a little bit looser than I personally prefer, but I do tend to prefer having very high tension sticks. The benefit to a looser approach like this does mean that you're able to move them around even faster. It just doesn't necessarily have the same degree of strong snapback to the center that I usually look for, but it is a pretty solid tension. The more interesting thing about these sticks, though, is that this is actually a new stick type that GameSir has begun using in their controllers that are called TMR sticks. This is basically a hybrid style midpoint between potentiometer sticks and the more recently popular Hall effect sticks. One of the reasons why people didn't like potentiometers because they could develop drift over time, which Hall effect does not, and TMR sticks are promising to offer a hybrid style where you're getting the durability of Hall effect, but also improved accuracy with the sticks as well. I already talked about the main cool feature about the ABXY buttons on this, but the crispness and pushback on them does feel good. The D-pad on this is interesting because it's a cross-shaped style that has a clicky mechanical feedback that's also in 8 directions. Normally when you have an 8 directional like that, it's going to be something that offers kind of a webbed or more circular D-pad design. In this case, you really just have the 4 strong directions, but if you really listen and feel out for the clicks when spinning around on it, it is doing a click for the diagonals as well as the 4 cardinal directions. Personally, I am a fan of clicky feedback on D-pads, primarily because when using it for fighting games, if you prefer using pad over stick, the ability to have that kind of immediate register of knowing when you're going in a certain direction is very handy for things like rolling inputs. Moving over to the shoulder buttons, the L and R button do have a kind of soft click feedback that is very satisfying, and then the back triggers do have the ability to swap between 2 modes. This is going into a style that we've been seeing crop up more lately that I personally love, where instead of just doing a short stop, which yeah, works, but doesn't always have the best feeling feedback, this instead has the ability to swap between either a traditional full pull or it can go into an actual mouse click style button. This makes it incredibly easy to do very fast rapid-fire trigger presses, so in a game where there is a benefit to being able to press the right trigger as fast as you possibly can, this is going to increase that speed significantly. Now, on top of all the traditional buttons, there are a number of remappable buttons on this controller that are both able to do a single button remap, or you can do an actual programmed macro. There are, of course, 2 located on the back, which is a pretty traditional setup. One interesting choice with these ones is that while they are built-in buttons that you can't remove, if there is a reason why you don't want them to be usable, maybe there's just a game where you don't need this particular back button functionality or you're very worried about accidentally pressing it, you have the ability to flip a switch right here, which makes the button just not operate at all. There are also 4 programmable buttons located at the top of the controller that are set up alongside the option and screen capture. Now, when it comes to remapping these, this can be done using GameSir's app, but you also do have the onboard option of taking advantage of this macro button on the back right here, whereby holding that down and then pressing one of the buttons you want to program, you can then press whatever combination of buttons or single button you want to map to it. And this macro button here has a whole lot of other things that it does for the controller. There are some things that you can have a little bit more refined control of if you use the GameSir app on your phone in order to do things like dial in trigger sensitivities or adjust the size of dead zones. But as far as just directly in the controller, not needing to use any kind of external device or app, using this macro button, you can do things like activate a turbo button feature that has 3 different levels of frequencies. You can activate a hair trigger mode. You can turn off the dead zones on either of the sticks. You can adjust vibration intensity along with a number of different color option controls for the light up effects on the controller, whether by switching between different styles, adjusting the brightness, or what color options. There's even a way of changing what type of controller this is being read as. One of the interesting things about the Tarantula is that it tries to have a very large different array of connection types to choose from. So not only can you connect to your PC or Switch or other devices through means like using Bluetooth connection or the included wireless dongle or doing a hardwired connection, you can also change what style of controller this is being read as in some of those connection styles, where it can be read as a Nintendo Switch controller, a DualShock 4, or as just a traditional exit controller, usually what you want to use on PC. The number of different things you can do with this macro button is a little overwhelming at first. Thankfully, it does include a little instruction manual that I definitely recommend giving a look at because it has a nice little breakdown and list of all the different button combinations and what those are able to turn off, on, and change around. Now, when it comes to being used as a Nintendo Switch controller, there are a number of other special features that tend to come up in Switch games specifically that not all third-party controllers are able to handle, and the Tarantula is actually able to mark off quite a few more than usual. It does not have the exact same style of vibration that Switch controllers have, where it's that more refined one, but you do still have a rumble style feedback from it. However, more interestingly, something that is here that a lot of other controllers tend to miss out on is that it not only has gyro controls, so you can do motion stuff in games, but it also does in fact have an NFC reader. So if you're playing stuff that has amiibo functionality, that is something this controller can actually tackle that a lot of third-party ones tend to not have. One other quick thing I want to shout out to that isn't inherent specifically to the controller, but it's one of the options you have when buying one of these, is that you can get the Tarantula by itself, but there is also a combo that comes with a charge stand. So if you like the simplicity of just being able to set a controller down on a cradle and not rely on having to directly plug it into whatever system you're using to charge it with, there is an option that opens it up for you. So that's just an overview of all the different special features this controller has to offer. It is quite the laundry list of a variety of things. Also compatibility-wise, again, this does cover a wide variety of stuff, primarily Switch, PC. It can also do iOS and Android. I want to once again thank GameSir for sponsoring today's video. If you're interested in grabbing one of these, I do have a link posted down below in the description. As always, if you enjoyed the video, hit the thumbs up button to let me know, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you all later.